Tandem learning is when two people learn each other's language and help each other learn the other language. So it is native speakers of two different languages, for example, English and German, and they meet up to help each other learn English and learn German. So the interesting thing about that is that you're an expert in your own language and the learner in the other language. So one half of the time you are the expert, you're teaching, you're helping the other person to develop the language, and the other half you're like the learner and you have to rely on help from your tandem partner. It used to be face-to-face, last century, but it has moved on very much from then. It's conducted on email, you can do it on Skype, you can do it on Facebook, wherever. So wherever you've got virtual communication, you can also do tandem learning. The important thing is just that you meet somebody online or face-to-face in a cafe if you want to, if you've got the opportunity to, and that you arrange how you learn together. Well, there are tandem pairing agencies, so-called pairing agencies, where you can look online for tandem partnership in the language combination that you're looking for. German-English, for example, or French-English would be really easy to find. There are more difficult combinations like, Khmer and Swahili, where you would have to find take a little bit more time to find somebody who wants to learn exactly that language. So in some ways, some people change it a little bit and then learn a third language together, but that's not, strictly speaking, tandem learning. Because the important thing, as I said, for tandem is that you feel an expert and you feel a learner at the same time. And some people, particularly in a learning situation where you're in a classroom, they feel inhibited by speaking in front of the teacher or in front of a native speaker who's really, really good. But if you change the roles halfway through, then you actually feel the same thing that you felt before, a learner, and then suddenly you're the expert. So you change the power structure considerably. Well, our learners, when they feedback, they say it's an advantage to have a peer, so somebody similar in age or similar in interest. You can sometimes be lucky and find somebody who becomes a real friend. But there's also another advantage in that you have to think about your own language. And that's fascinating when you actually follow these learners over a period of time. And at first they just think, oh, it's all just about vocabulary and it's about learning lists of words and helping the other person to translate the words into the language. And when they go on a little bit longer, they find that they actually learn a lot about their own language, about the structure of the language, about words that are not, that cannot be translated or that are stumbling blocks in translation. And these insights are really important. And of course, you don't just learn the language, you don't just learn bits of language or structures of language, you also learn about the culture. You can talk about topics that interest you, but you also find out where there are these sort of friction points where you think you're talking about the same topic, but you find then that actually people mean something different when they say theater in German, they mean something different than when they talk about the theater in English, and just these cultural contexts come up in tandem learning a lot more than they would do in a classroom situation. It's a negotiation between the two learning partners. There are some suggestions on structure, on how to plan your meetings, that it's always supposed to be half in one language, half in the other language. There's some suggestions for topics or questions, warming up subjects and so on. But in my experience, particularly for adult learners or for learners who have more freedom to choose their own topics, they always find something to discuss. And it's much more relevant to their own personal life and experience than anything you can suggest from the outside. Tandem can also be integrated into a more formal education of languages. For example, some of our courses added tandem on as a voluntary additional activity, particularly in languages that are not so widely spoken in England. It might be beneficial if you have a tandem partner in the country where the language is spoken, and you can negotiate times and activities, times and learning tasks online. We did Tandem for Chinese beginner learners, for example, and we found them Tandem partners who were living in China, and they could communicate via email asynchronously, so easier to find a time to fit, but also on Skype, and that was synchronous and speaking focused.